Hi, it's Barry Lebow. And one of the things, one of the seminars that I've created and teach to realtors across the province of Ontario through the real estate boards is finding your niche, becoming a niche player. And for Americans who are listening, that's niche. And the Americans, there's one thing that when it rhymes with niche, and that is they have a saying in the States, niches equal riches, and we it doesn't quite come out the same in Canadian English as niches equal riches, but they do. And one of the niches that I am looking at, really studying, and I'll be honest with you, I wish I was younger because I would get so absorbed in this, and that is the Laneway house. I am fixated now on these laneway houses for many, many reasons. And the reason that I look at these as the city of Toronto, as many cities have now across North America, to intensify the city, what are they going to do? They can't keep going up all the time. So they have to look at the single family lots and say, these are wasted space. Let's put apartments above the garages, or let's even eliminate the garages and let's put in rental housing. So there's many reasons for a laneway house, and I've seen people do it for granny suites. Now remember, this is something. It is only around, all you have to do to put an elevator in on the outside, a tube basically. It's only a hydraulic lift going up one story. You're looking at about $30,000 cost to put granny or grandpa upstairs behind your house and care for them. You can put your students that, your older teens or college students, they want to live away from their family, but be with their family. Or maybe you're working from home and you want your own office. But let's look at the more practical one. And that is the person who says, I'm going to make X dollars a year from the laneway house. So here's where the problems are. Because of COVID, there hasn't been much reassessment work in the province of Ontario, or probably with most places in North America, in the last couple of years. So somebody comes along, gets a permit. It's not an easy thing to get, but it's not impossible. You have to follow certain criteria. And I know that in the last year or 2 years, there's been about 200 plus laneway houses built in Toronto, and more to come. So you get the permit and you go to build and everything's fine, but how much more are your taxes going to go up? Because there has to become a formula from the assessment people to say that your so much of your backyard is contributing, or this the rear of your house, towards the whole of market value. Now we got a problem. If I look at this from the years that I was an appraiser, and I appraised a lot of coach houses in my career, and two types of coach houses. Some of them were actually severed, and you go down the driveway from the house, the coach house was there, and they had severed the rear lot with a right of way down the driveway to get access. That made a lot of sense in Toronto, that Rosedale and Summerhill and places. I did coach house evaluations. But once in a while, I got into coach houses that were attached and part of the house. The question became, how much more did it contribute to the market value of the house? And this is where the problem is. I'm hearing from people that appraisers are not giving them much value. And I'm also hearing that some realtors are saying, well, they're value to use. For you, it's got value, to somebody else, it doesn't. Really, let's look at it from the more simplistic point of view about a laneway house. It is an income generating component of the overall. It is. So if you had two small bungalows side by side, and they were within reason of being similar, except for one thing, they both have side entrances, but one has a completely finished basement apartment, may not be legal, but it's still a finished basement apartment. And the other is an unfinished basement. Which one is going to sell for more money? And the reason that it's going to sell the one that's finished for more money is the same thing with a laneway house, for two reasons. Either it's value to use, the family needs it for another rental accommodation, not rental, pardon me, I'll backtrack. Living accommodation, maybe for a relative, their kids or whatever. So that's family use, that's value to use. Value to use and market value means value to use is I will pay a premium because I have a use for that. It's the same thing as somebody buying a house with a garage that has a reinforced concrete floor because they're hobbyists and they're going to do something and fix cars, do something that they want that reinforced floor. So that's value and use. It's a use to the person buying it, okay? So, but in a lot of cases, they'll use it for rental income to offset their mortgage and carrying costs in the house. We all know that. That's logic. That's just the way real estate's been for the last 50, 60 years. Okay. Now let's look at this, the laneway house, the rental income laneway house. It's a garage, folks, with an apartment above it, and it's simplistic, but it can be attractive. All right. So let's look at the rent. What are you going to get? You're not going to get, depending on the neighborhood, you're not going to get $2,000 a month. So let's say $1,750 a month. It's reasonable for getting $1,500 for basement apartments. So $1,750 equals $21,000 a year gross. Do they pay water? Do they have what expenses do they have? What I'm the owner of the house. What expenses do I have against the 21,000 coming in? Number one, heat. No, they got their own furnace. Electric? No, they've got their own electrical system. Water? Yeah, water would probably that you probably wouldn't get a separate meter for water. You could, but let's just take the supposition that again, it's all net. So what two expenses do I have? Well, well, there's three. There's the first expense, and the biggest one is realty tax. Realty tax has to be taken off. What is my best guess that they're going to come in and look at this and say, how much is it worth? Maybe 15, 20% of the whole, maybe 10% low, and I think as much as 20. They could say it adds that much to the value. But if you've got 21,000 and you take off 10%, you're down to 19. You've got insurance. There has to be insurance on it, and that's for my benefit. It's replacement insurance. It's not a fortune. Another, say 12 on top of my regular policy, $500-600 more a year. I mean, or maybe 1,000. So I'm down to about 18,000 net. And what else do I have? Well, I had to build it, so I've got a mortgage on it, and I've got interest. That's if the lender understands it. And I think you're going to be more B lenders for this than A lenders, but I could be wrong. So you're making about 17,000, 16,000 on that. So I'll go with 16,000. I'm sitting at a calculator, and I'm going to say like this. I'm going to say you're not going to get, it's not a 4 or 5% return. Right now, if I got a commercial little store apartment, I could sell it for about 3.5% return if it's decent. 4%. But this has no land component. If you're appraising this as a separate entity, then you have to look at the whole. This property probably would bring in, I would probably say that the return to the investor should be, somewhere around 7-8%. And the reason I look at that is because you're not getting land. The land it's not separate. It's integrated into the whole, the house in the front and this the back. You can't sever. I'm sure there's some lots that are very deep and you could get severance. That's fine. But if I look at a 7% on that, it's worth about $245,000 contributing to the market value of the house. So if the house is $1.5 million and has no garage, all it has is open parking, and this one next door has a laneway, my logic says it should be worth another 245, 300,000 even over the other. Now it costs about 500,000 to 600 to build a good laneway house, 550 give or take. And you're going to say, but Barry, it only raises my value a couple of hundred. Yeah, but you only pay the cost once. The value, you get the income going year after year after year. So what is happening? Why am I start with niche. Why would I want to look at this? Number one, if I were a younger agent that was really, really hungry, believe me, I still am hungry, but not putting in the hours I used to put in. I would immerse myself in this. I would become such an expert in the Laneway house. I'd speak to the couple of companies that are building these. I'd get it down to a science. I'd be able to tell my people, buy this house. I will work with you to get a laneway house in here and get you X number of income. I have a mortgage lender for you. I have the architect for you. I have the builder for you. I can get you through the zoning process. I can give you a complete package. And then as you start selling them, as these, see, where the value, when we're going to be able to really nail the value on a laneway house is as these properties sell, resell on the open market, you're going to be able to say, this house down the street didn't have one, this one did have one, and the difference is the dollar amount or the percentage. And then we see as a trend, this is new. We don't have that trend. There's been some, Clinton Street, some streets, they've been around for some years in some areas. You have to do a study and it's going to be interesting. So this is a niche. This is a new niche. And then on top, there's granny flats, which is a different topic, but very similar. So that's my take. At this moment, if I were to value the add-on of a laneway house, I would use an income approach. Later, as I got more data, I would extract it from the markets. Good. I hope that everybody, that some of you somebody has to become the expert in this city, in your city, on laneway houses. It's up to you, but niche will guarantee you something. If you're a niche player, the phone rings for you. You're the expert. Everybody who needs information on that subject, you are the go-to person. So you want to be a commodity realtor and you walk in the door and the first thing they say is, how much do you charge? You eliminate that when you're dealing with a niche. Good luck. And I hope you found this informative. And yes, I'm going to ask, I'd really like you to subscribe to Barry Lebow TV. Take care and find your niche.